Quick favor before we start. Tap subscribe. 1 second for you, huge for me. You ever get a message that hits like a gut punch? I was elbow deep in a 69 GTO build when my phone buzzed. I figured it was a customer or a parts rep. Nope. It was from my stepfather. Grant Mercer. Family meeting. 1 hour. At the house. I stared at the screen. Grant doesn't do family. In the 5 years since he married my mother, he's never invited me to a birthday, a holiday. Nothing. Unless he needed free labor to move furniture. I texted back. Shops slammed today. He replied almost instantly. This is above the shop. Be here. That wording perked up my training. I'm Captain Maya Rios, U.S. Army, and when someone says above, I listen. Grant has never cared about my business. Honestly, I doubt he could tell a carburetor from a fuel injector. But ever since Redline Classics gave our garage a shout-out and our waitlist stacked for 3 straight months, I've caught him sniffing around, asking my mom questions, offering to help with paperwork. I wiped my hands, called over my lead tech Owen Park, and told him I had to step out. He raised an eyebrow, then nodded. The bay doors shook with compressors. A small block roared on the dyno. After years of 70-hour weeks since my dad died, it finally felt like the grind was paying off. I climbed into my truck and headed down I-30 toward the old house. The one my dad bought when I was 6, back when he was patching tires for minimum wage and saving every dime to open Rios Motor Works. That garage was his life. After pancreatic cancer took him in 2017, it became mine. I can still see him in that driveway showing me how to swap a spark plug before I even had a learner's permit. Torque, timing, and show up on time no matter what. From the outside, nothing had changed, same white paint, same cracked driveway, but the air felt wrong before I even killed the engine. Grant's truck was there. So was my mom's, and she barely drives since her hip surgery last year. Not a good sign. I walked up the steps, hands still smelling like oil. This wasn't a catch-up. I rang the bell. Mom opened the door. Red-rimmed eyes. The kind of crying that comes in waves. Inside, more bad news. Dad's recliner. Gone. In its place, one of those stiff hotel lobby chairs. The wall above the fireplace used to hold his wrench sets, cleaned and mounted by size. Now there were framed hustle quotes. Discipline equals freedom. Be the CEO of your life. Classic Grant. What's going on? I asked. Before Mom could answer, Grant strolled in from the kitchen like he owned the deed, whiskey in hand and a grin big enough to crack glass. Good news, he said, cheerful as a game show host. I sold the garage. For a second my ears rang. You what? He lifted a folder like it was a trophy. 3 million. National outfit. Prairie Tire and Lube. They're turning it into a flagship location. It's going to be big. I laughed once, sharp. You can't sell what you don't own. Grant stepped closer, all gelled hair and fake confidence. Actually, I can. Your mother gave me power of attorney during her surgery last year. That gives me legal authority over her 49%. I spoke with their lawyers. It's all reviewed. I looked at Mom. She wouldn't meet my eyes, fingers twisting together. He said it was just for emergencies, she whispered. It was, Grant cut in, until this opportunity came along. You think I'm passing on 3 million? My voice dropped, steady as a range command. I still own 51. That's not how this works, I said. You can't do anything without my say. That's the thing, Grant replied, flipping through his folder. You're 35, sure, but not qualified legally. There's a city finding from 2 years ago, back when you applied for that grant to expand the base. It says you weren't fit for sole financial management of a commercial property. Buyers don't like that. Their counsel says it's risky unless both owners sign. So technically, Prairie's lawyers say they're in the clear. Deal's already processed. My stomach dropped. You're lying. He didn't blink. The buyers have the docs. Wires are moving. I turned to my mom. You let him do this? Tears welled. I didn't know. He never said it would be permanent. He told me it was just for emergencies, bills, if something happened to me. You gave him the keys, I said. To everything Dad built. Grant clapped his hands once like we were wrapping a meeting. Look, it's done. You'll get a payout. You're set. No more 70-hour weeks. No more greasy coveralls. You should be thanking me. I wanted to break his nose. Instead, I turned and walked out. Mom called my name, but if I stayed one more second, I'd say something I couldn't take back. Outside air felt thick. I got in my truck, fired it up, and sat with the engine idling. My hands shook so hard I had to crush the wheel to steady them. My shop, our shop, handed to a chain like it was a strip mall lease. No soul. No history. No dad. And the worst part? He let it happen. I drove back on autopilot. Fist tight the whole way. No radio. No leather. Just heat rising up my neck. 5 years of blood, sweat, split knuckles, and skipped holidays. Hijacked by a man who probably thinks an alternator is a drink mixer. And somehow it was legal. I pulled into the lot as the sun dipped behind the buildings, throwing gold across the bays. The crew was still rolling, hoods up, torches hissing, bass thumping through the cinder block. They had no idea. I slammed the door and headed straight to the office to figure out what came next. The sound hit like a wall. Ratchets, grinders, compressors. Good chaos. Mid-shift. Sleeves rolled. Sweat. A Bluetooth speaker rattling on the back wall. I gave Owen a nod by the lift. He tossed a half-wave without looking up from the 70 Chevelle's rear axle. If he caught my face, he let it slide. Down the hall, past the parts room, into my dad's office. Mine now. Same smell. Paper, burnt coffee, oil ground into carpet. His old Cowboys mug still on the shelf, logo half faded. I'd never moved it. Like leaving it there might bring him back. The chair creaked under me. My body felt heavy, like someone poured concrete into my boots. Then I saw it. A plain manila folder. No logo, no label. Black paperclip. Corner stamped. Harborline Investment Group. I'd been dodging them for months. Trash the letters, ignore the emails. I told their guy, Daniel Kincaid, that Rios Motor Works wasn't for sale. Ever. Non-starter. Now I sat in an office I might not legally own, watching sparks dance through the window of a shop already promised to a company that would bleach it of everything that made it ours. I could practically see the Prairie Tire banner. Corporate blue and yellow, exit ramp bland. If someone's going to own this place, I thought, it damn sure isn't going to be them. I grabbed the folder and flipped it open. Same offer as last time. Just over $3.5 million. Terms in plain English. No layoffs, no franchise branding. Keep the name. Keep the team. Scale the classic rebuild model to other locations with my input. I pulled out my phone and tapped the last number Daniel left me. He answered on the second ring. Daniel Kincaid. It's Rios. A beat. Didn't expect to hear from you, Daniel Kincaid said. You still want the garage? No hesitation. His voice sharpened. Name the time. We met that night at the Signal House Diner off 287. The place hadn't changed since the 80s. Bacon grease, burnt toast, cracked vinyl booths. Daniel was already there, nursing a coffee like it was whiskey. Late 50s, clean shave, trim suit that didn't belong under a flickering ceiling light. He stood and shook my hand like we were ending a war. Long day, he asked. You could say that. We sat. No small talk. He slid a thick folder across the table. I had legal draft the final version just in case, he said. Same terms as before. No rebranding. No staff cuts. No layout changes. You keep full management authority. We scale your model across the state, maybe Arizona if you're game. And the name? I asked. Front and center, he said. Rios Motor Works stays Rios Motor Works. I didn't touch the folder. Why me? He shrugged. Because shops like yours are dying and they shouldn't be. You do honest work. You built something that matters. I don't want to change it. I want to scale it. I glanced around. Old-timers with pie at the counter. A waitress pouring coffee with muscle memory. The place had soul. My shop had soul. Prairie would smother that under touchscreen kiosks and forced smiles. Daniel leaned in. If you're ready, my team is on standby. We can close by morning. You walk out with 3.8 and a contract that guarantees your crew's jobs and your name on every door. I stared at him, jaw tight. If you screw me, I said, I burn it all down. Clear. He didn't flinch. He smiled. Crystal. I didn't finish my coffee. Didn't need to. I shook his hand and walked into the hot Texas night, stars drowned by the neon diner sign. In my truck, I sat with the window down and the folder in my lap. Cicadas screamed in the trees. I could hear my dad's voice. You only get one name. Protect it. I opened the contract, signed where it said seller, and snapped a photo of the page. By 0800 the shop would be mine again, on my terms. By sunrise, everything was in motion. Harborline's legal team didn't sleep. Mobile notary. County filings. Wire confirmations. I signed the full packet with fresh coffee in my hand and my name across the header. By 10:30 the ink was dry. Rios Motor Works was officially sold to me and Harborline Investment Group. Not to a strip mall chain, not to a fast lube parasite. The agreement locked me in as general manager, ironclad. Every job protected. Every tech. Every parts runner. Every soul who'd bled on those floors, safe. I printed 3 copies of the final sale agreement and drove straight to my mother's house. I pulled in 15 minutes before the prairie guy was scheduled to arrive. I didn't knock. Inside, Grant had staged the living room like a Wall Street boardroom. Legal pads fanned on the coffee table, 2 laptops open, a pitcher of water like he was about to give a TED Talk. He paced in a blazer 2 sizes too hopeful, mouthing lines he'd probably lifted from LinkedIn. He froze when he saw me. "What are you doing here? This is a private deal. You can't be here." I stepped in like I owned the deed. "Wouldn't miss it." "I'm calling security," he puffed. "The HOA that cites overgrown lawns? Be my guest." The doorbell rang before he could reach his phone. Grant opened it like greeting royalty. In walked Trent from Prairie Tire and Lube, mid-50s, suit 2 shades too slick, cologne that belonged in a clearance bin. He shook Grant's hand hard, then looked me over like I was there to refill coffee. "You the mechanic?" he asked. "I'm the majority owner." Trent blinked. "Excuse me." Grant cut in fast. "Ignore her. That's my stepdaughter. She doesn't speak for the company." Trent didn't bite. He pulled out his phone, scrolled and frowned. This says Rios Motor Works was sold yesterday morning to Harborline Investment Group." I leaned in and laid my packet on the coffee table. "Not a rumor. Here's the contract. Signed, filed, wire confirmed. I sold my 51% at 1,030 hours yesterday. Clean transaction. Harborline holds majority control." Grant's face drained. That's impossible. You didn't have, there's no way." "What you had," I said, "was a forged plan and a fake sense of control. You tried to backdoor my father's legacy to line your pockets and bet on me rolling over." Trent looked between us, eyes narrowing. "So the deal I'm about to sign? I'd be buying 49% of a business I don't control." "Correct," I said. "No naming rights. No management power. Half a slice of something already sold." Grant flailed. "It's still a valuable stake. We could renegotiate structure." "No," Trent said, already standing. He snapped his briefcase shut. The latches cracked like a shot. "We're done here." He paused at the door. "Oh, and Grant? Our legal team will be in touch. That $60,000 deposit you took under false pretenses? That's called fraud." Grant chased him onto the porch with half sentences and wild hand signals. Trent never looked back. Tires chirped. Silence. Just me, Grant, and my mother, who I hadn't noticed in the kitchen doorway, hand over her mouth, pale as the tile. She stepped forward, eyes locked on him. "You took $60,000? "It was a placeholder," he snapped. "I was going to triple it. For us. For us." Her voice went cold. "You didn't even tell me." He looked like a dog caught chewing drywall. "The plan was perfect until your idiot." "You ruined it," I said, stepping closer, steady. "The second you tried to erase Dad for a check." Mom cut in loud and firm. "I want you out of this house by tonight." He blinked. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. Pack your things. Be gone before dinner." I didn't wait to see the fallout. I left. By the time I pulled into the shop, the crew was already mid-celebration. Owen had turned a rusted Dodge tailgate into a grill station. Coals blazing. Burgers hissing. Char and grease thick in the air. Someone dragged out a speaker. Classic rock bounced off the bay doors. Beers were cold and cheap. Rudy and Lenny raced creepers across the back lot, yelling like they were 10. Casey danced with a wrench, already half a beer down, trying to teach Owen a move that looked like a 2-step crossed with a short circuit. When they saw me, the noise spiked. "Boss!" Rudy shouted. "We thought you were bailing on your own party." I cracked a smile for the first time all day. "Hell no. Somebody has to supervise this disaster. I didn't say a word about the house. Didn't have to. In a shop like ours, word moves faster than a torque wrench spin. You spend enough hours elbow to elbow turning dead metal into something that runs, you learn to read people like gauges. I took a cold one, leaned on the tailgate and let it hit. Grills, smoke, laughter, grease-stained coveralls, busted knuckles, stained concrete under our boots. This wasn't just a shop. It was ours. A little before 2100, Daniel Kincaid rolled up in his black Ram, this time in jeans and boots, carrying a full case of Shiner Bock like he belonged there. Honestly, he did. He cut straight through the crowd, handed me a bottle and raised his own in a toast. Your old man built one hell of a foundation, Daniel said, voice low but steady. We're just going to build on it. I clinked bottles with him. As long as you keep suits and motivational posters off my walls, we'll be fine. He laughed. Deal. He stuck around, shot the breeze with the crew, even flipped burgers when Owen set off the smoke alarm by the side door. Nothing formal, nothing flashy, just real. Daniel understood the value of staying out of the way when something already works. I respected that more than any lawyer-backed contract. Later, someone hauled out a box of old shop Polaroids, the ones we used to tape by the time clock. Me and Dad under a Mustang, faces streaked in grease. Owen on his first day, grinning like he had no idea what he'd signed up for. Casey holding up a transmission like a trophy. We passed them around and laughed at the bad haircuts and rust-stained jeans. For a second, it felt like Dad had just stepped out to grab parts and would be back any minute. As the night wound down and the last burgers disappeared, I looked around and saw what mattered. Not the name on the building. Not the money. Not even the revenge. It was the people, the work, the values Dad poured into every inch of this place. Grant tried to sell it like a real estate parcel. Dad built a legacy and I made sure it stayed where it belonged. I crushed my empty can, tossed it in the barrel and walked in to lock the bay doors. This place was mine again. I planned to keep it that way. I turned the key and stood in the quiet. No music, no grill smoke, no busted knuckle jokes. Just me. Burnt rubber, old grease, and a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. 6 months later, that peace turned into momentum. I took my cut from the Harbor Line deal and put it into the thing Dad and I always talked about but never had the cash to chase. High-performance builds, street-legal monsters. We used to watch races on TV, circle parts in catalogs we couldn't afford, and sketch ideas on the backs of invoices. That dream lived in the someday pile until now. Kincaid and Rios Performance opened 10 minutes down the road in a beat-up warehouse I'd been eyeing forever. We gutted the inside, reinforced the lifts, installed a custom dyno and built out top-tier paint and fab. No banners. No coupons. No corporate nonsense. Just horsepower, sweat and steel. Daniel kept his word. Showed up once a month with a check and that easy smile, asked how the numbers looked, patted the hood of whatever animal was on the lift and let us work. I'm here to keep the engine running, he'd say, handing me a Shiner. You're the one doing the driving. Business boomed. If you build clean, mean machines and treat customers like people instead of invoices, they talk. We didn't need ads. Word of mouth brought in street racers, collectors, and vets wanting to resurrect old rides. Even a few minor league sponsors with deep pockets and wilder dreams. Back at the original shop, Rios Motor Works ran smoother than ever. Same crew, same rhythm. The vending machine still jammed if you hit E6 too hard. And my mom came back to life. First, she filed for divorce and hired a forensic accountant, who found Grant had been siphoning from her retirement and Dad's insurance for years. She froze his accounts, cleaned out the joint checking, and got the house back in her name within 2 months. Then she started showing up at the garage every Sunday like it was church. Always with sandwiches, turkey and mustard, Dad's favorite. She'd sit on a folding chair near the back door, sipping sweet tea, watching us work. Quiet, steady, stronger than I'd seen her in years. At lunch, she told stories I'd never heard. Your dad rebuilt a carburetor on our honeymoon, she said one Sunday, unwrapping a sandwich like it was nothing. We were in Galveston. The rental died. He wouldn't let the hotel send a mechanic, spent 3 hours in dress shoes under the hood. Casey grinned. Sounds about right. He got grease on the minister's suit, Mom laughed. Didn't notice until the photos came back. Every week, something new, details that turned him from the legend in my head back into a human being. Sometimes after lunch, we'd drive past the original shop together. She liked the line of cars outside, the now hiring sign that never seemed to come down because business was that good. Harborline's new structure out back doubled our floor space, but they kept the name big and bold across the front. Rios Motor Works, the same block letters Dad stenciled by hand 20 years ago. One Sunday we rolled up to a red light across from it. She glanced over at me with a half smile and shook her head. "He'd be proud of you," she said. "You think so?" "I know so. You didn't just protect what he built. You grew it without changing who he was." That landed in the best way. I kept thinking about how close we came to losing everything. How one signature, one bad move could have paved over years of sweat and sacrifice. Grant tried to trade legacy for profit like the name didn't matter once the check cleared. But I knew better. So did Mom. At the new shop we kept Dad in the details. His old torque wrench mounted over the office door. His beat-up Cowboys mug on the shelf by the coffee machine, chipped handle and all. I even had his initials, R, engraved into the edge of our custom tuning bench. Some things you don't let go of. Not for money. Not for anything. 6 months ago I thought I was about to lose it all. Now I had 2 thriving shops, a crew that felt like family, a future built on horsepower and integrity, and a mother who'd finally started to heal. And I had my father's name still standing bold and unshaken, exactly where it belonged. We hung the photo above the office door. Dad in a grease-streaked t-shirt, arms crossed, smirking in front of a cherry-red Firebird he finished 2 days before his last hospital trip. Simple wood frame. No brass plaque. He wouldn't have wanted one. Mom held the level while I drilled. Her hands were steady, her eyes clear, fully herself again. "Good?" I asked. She stepped back, nodded once. "Looks like he belongs here." He did. Last I heard, Grant was pushing used boats off a gravel lot outside Weatherford, just off I-30. Faded banner. Easy Marine Deals in crooked red letters. I drove past once on my way to pick up a crankshaft. Spotted him under a torn pop-up canopy, mirrored shades on, barking at some poor couple about financing. The sign said no credit, no problem. Which pretty much summed him up. Word is he still tells anyone who'll listen about the millions he almost made. If my ungrateful stepdaughter hadn't screwed me. Like he didn't nearly torch a legacy to line his pockets. Honestly, I hope he keeps telling that story. It's the only honest thing he's ever said. Meanwhile, every week we get at least one walk-in at Kincaid and Rios Performance who pauses at the photo wall and says, "Your dad rebuilt my Camaro back in '04. Or, "I remember this place when he ran it. Glad to see it's still alive." I always smile, nod, offer a coffee. Inside something turns, not in a bad way, just deep. Because it is alive. But it's not just the name. It's the values. Doing things the hard way when it's the right way. Staying late so someone has their truck for work in the morning. Paying your people fair. Showing up on time. And never handing the keys to snakes like Grant just because a check has a lot of zeros. Dad used to say the secret to a clean engine is attention to detail. Every gasket, every torque spec, every inch matters. Turns out that's true for people too, for businesses, for families. A shop is more than walls, lifts, and grease on the floor. It's proof you don't have to sell out to win, that you can protect your people and still come out ahead. Now I've got 2 locations, a crew that's more like a tribe, Mom back in my corner, and a future Dad would have raced a cold beer to without saying a word. I didn't just wreck Grant's plan. I kept what mattered. The garage is still ours. It just has a better engine under the hood. Would you have taken Grant down the same way or handled it differently? Drop it in the comments, and if this story hit home, tap subscribe and give it a like.